let's take a look at everything I knit in 2025. From colorwork to texture, accessories, sweaters. Here's a look at my year in knitting. Hey guys, it's Lexi and welcome to Everything I Knit in 2025. All right, so we're gonna jump right in with the projects. I wanna give you guys a good overview of what I actually completed this year. So I believe in total there were 13 projects. So that was 5 sweaters, 3 tops, and 5 accessory projects. So let's begin at the top of the year when I completed the novice sweater, which I'm actually wearing today. This is a design by Petite Knit, and I completed it before I even started my podcasts. I think I included it as a finished object in my very first podcast, and I used yarn that was dyed by a friend who owned a yarn shop, and unfortunately she's no longer with us, but the yarn was very special and I wanted to make it into an everyday staple that I would wear all the time and get a lot of use out of. So I paired the yarn that she dyed, which I believe was a merino base, with a really neat soft like silk and mohair blend from Dirty Water Dye Works. So I get a lot of use out of this sweater. I love it. I think it's really neat. I'm gonna try to pop some pictures up as I describe these projects for you so you get either video or photo montage of the finished project. But yeah, I love it. It's a good staple and it started to give me confidence in constructing sweaters. This was very simple, a round yoke, and it's a petite knit pattern, so of course very beginner friendly. Okay, next I completed my Augustins number 4 by Augustins DK, and I'll again pop the picture up for you. This was a really exciting project. She released the pattern in 2024, and so I was very excited to get it on the needles and start working on it. This was really the first time that I started mood boarding and thinking about color work on a bigger scale and really starting to hone into what colors go together and how to pick a cohesive color palette. So even though the sweater only has 2 colors, I did mood board for it and ultimately decided to choose colors from Knitting for Olive. I used their heavy merino and their soft silk mohair. I did make a few modifications to the pattern. I believe I actually did quite a severe decrease to the waist to sort of make it cinched with quite a thick waistband. So I think that probably was the only modification I made, but I know that was kind of a big one and it does change the overall silhouette of the pattern, but I'm glad I did it and I think it suits the sweater. In March, I knit penny gloves for my sister. I had some hedgehog fibers, skinny singles base laying around in this really pretty pink and blue and sort of a neutral colorway, and then I paired it with, I think it was white mohair. I believe it may have been the same mohair that I used in this sweater. It's very soft and perfect for gloves. But anyways, so I wrapped those up for a quick gift for her and I know she gets a lot of use out of them. So another accessories project down. So next I completed a Laulu shawl, and this is a pattern by Sari Nordland. I completed 2 of them this year. They were both gift knits. One was for my mom for Mother's Day and the other was for a family member's birthday. And I knit them out of Lang Cashmere Premium, which was a really wonderful experience. I highly recommend that yarn. I was having trouble finding Cardiff cashmere. That was something that I was really interested in learning to work with or to experiencing, but unfortunately I just wasn't able to find the color range I was looking for, and it's just not widely as carried in the US. I could be wrong. But in my experience, I had a harder time finding it. So I went on Wool & Company and I found Lang Cashmere Premium. They have a really wonderful array of colors. I think they're a very comparable type of cashmere and I had a great time working it up. So I'll pop pictures of both of the shawls up. I did one in sort of a bright periwinkle blue and then the other in a soft teal. And I thought the colors I chose were really nice for the pattern. I know the pattern has a lot of texture, cables, and lace. And I just felt like it was nice because it showed off the detail in the pattern, but they were also colors that kind of were standalone and would add a little pop to any outfit that the recipient was wearing. So really beautiful pattern and glad I knit those up. Next, I believe I started my Lacy Loops tee. This was a pattern by Other Loops. It was a fairly new pattern and I just was dying to start working on spring and summer knits. As you guys know, I really haven't done a lot of garment knitting beyond this year. A little bit in 2024, but mostly majority of my garment knitting experience was in 2025. And so I was very excited to start working on this project and work with a yarn that wasn't a wool. So this I knit out of Knitting for Olive in their pure silk base, and I believe it was the color powder. It was a really beautiful soft neutral, and I wanted the pattern to really stand out. It was sort of a striped pattern with garter stitch and eyelets, and it was really neat. Kind of a drop shoulder style t-shirt and a little oversized, but I absolutely love the way this came out. It was a fun pattern and it was a really successful first like spring summer garment knit for me. After that, I believe I was working on my Monday sweater. So if you guys follow the podcast, you know that I was working on this for quite a while. I used a completely different fiber in this sweater. I decided to go with cotton from Rowan, which was beautiful, and I really enjoyed working with it. The color was, I think, a limited edition colorway. You can go back and listen in to the details for that sweater, but it was just the perfect light summer sweater, very beachy and soft, and just kind of felt like sunshine, and I think that was the colorway. But it just felt like such a soft, great layering piece for when the nights get a little chillier or you're in an air-conditioned space. So I'm really glad I went with the cotton there, and honestly, I think I would do it again. I would even try other fibers for the Monday sweater because it's such a great basic pattern by Petite Knit once again. So that was a fantastic summer sweater knit, and absolutely enjoyed that process. Next, we have the Take Turns Tank by Lily Kate France. So this was a pattern that I had saved in my Ravelry favorites for a long time. I really admire Lily Kate's like attention to detail in her design style. She has so many small details and decisions that don't seem like a lot, but when you really add them all up and when you look at the overall pattern, all of those small, conspicuous, and intentional design thoughts add up. They make a huge difference, and they make an incredible difference in the fit of the garment. So I was a little concerned because a tank top, you're not really quite sure how it's going to fit. As you all know, I'm very tall, about 6 feet tall, and I just wasn't sure like if the bust was gonna line up, or I was having some second thoughts about it. But I knit it up and it was wonderful, and I'm really glad to have that piece. I knit it in a really fun lime green color with sort of a sage green. And here again, I started to think about color and mood boarding and how to pair things together. So even though again, we're just looking at a 2-color colorwork piece, it was still intentional, and I still put some thought into which colors would work the best. And I believe I knit this out of Cascade Hampton, which is a cotton blend, and it was a really nice yarn to work with. I enjoyed it a lot, very lightweight and breathable. I think it's a blend with linen, so there is a little bit of texture to it, but I think for the most part, I didn't have any issue wearing it, and I thought it was a comfortable knit. So I enjoyed that, and it was fun because it was really my first tank top. All right, so now we're moving into a project that didn't go so well for me, although I was very excited to knit it. This was the Venus top by Sari Nordland. It was part of her summer knits book, which I did purchase and I love. There's so many wonderful patterns in there, and it's just a beautiful book to have and to peruse through. The photography is lovely. I think all of it was shot in Italy, which, hey, can't do better than that, right? But unfortunately, this project just kind of went off the rails for me. I hadn't done a lot of lace work before, and I did not realize how much that contributes to the overall growth of a garment. And so this was sort of an all over fan and feather lace pattern. It's very pretty, and there's going to be photos up for you to kind of take a look at, but unfortunately it just kept growing. It wasn't really ever the right size or shape for me. It was quite long from the top of the tank kind of to the underarms. Even though I followed the pattern, I believe I followed it to the letter. I really tried to make sure I was paying attention and doing things as the pattern called out. But it was just way too long, and I think it's because that feather and fan pattern grew. As a lot of you guys suggested, that's probably what happened. And then beyond that, it just wasn't laying super well in the back. It was sort of curling and rolling on itself. Granted, I didn't fully block the project because I was just so discouraged with it. I think I just gave it a quick misting spray bottle block. So I probably could have blocked it better, but I think at that point it would have grown even more. I loved the yarn I was using. It was from Plies and Hellhounds, and it was her Lucent base, which is a really gorgeous special base. I think it's a BFL silk and cashmere blend. I could be wrong, but it was a really fun color. It was Vagar, which is, I think it's Blood and Fire or Game of Thrones related. And I really was hoping to have it as a fall piece. And I did finish it, I think, the end of August, but unfortunately, it just wasn't something that was going to be wearable for me, and I think I have to rip that back and sort of reclaim the yarn so I can use it in a different project. All right, next up we have the Cosima sweater by Gregoria Fibers. So this was a really fun test knit that I did for Gregoria Fibers, and it was sort of the first V-neck sweater I had done. So last year I did do a V-neck vest, which was the Highland Home Vest by Alice Dunn Smith. I have referred to it in podcasts before. And it was beautiful, but that was truly my first V-neck experience. But so in this sweater, I decided to use mini alpaca by Sandnes Garn, which is another fabric that grows, considerably. Alpaca does tend to grow and become a little droopier. But overall, I've worn that sweater so many times. I cannot speak highly of the pattern enough. It's not a complicated sweater. It's not... We're not reinventing the wheel with this, but it really became a staple, something I wore on my honeymoon. When my husband and I went to Ireland and Scotland, I wore it a few times. So it traveled well and it's held up through the season so far. I love the color. Something that I did notice is that a lot of times I'm going for, a solid, but I'm trying to be intentional about the colors that I'm choosing and make it something that integrates well with my wardrobe and also suits the piece. So I loved this blueberry color. I think it was called Blueberry. It might have been a limited edition color, but I held the mini alpaca double and it was the perfect weight, and I just can't say enough about this sweater. It was a really positive test knit experience for me. Okay, and somewhere in there I also knit a Sophie scarf as a gift. Again, I used Lang Cashmere Premium in a really pretty bright red color. I knit this as a gift for a family member who was helping me a lot around that time with wedding preparations, and just wanted to do something sweet and thoughtful, and she is the type that could rock a scarf like this. So I loved it. I thought it knit up really beautifully. I was happy with it. Obviously, this pattern is probably one of the most popular patterns on the internet. It's widely known. It's a very simple garter stitch scarf with an I-cord edge, but very effective and certainly a fun, lovely gift. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about my Augustins #1 sweater, again by Augustins DK. So this was something that I started in the beginning of the year prior to starting my podcast. It was another Augustins DK pattern that I had seen and that really just resonated with me. I don't know why, that Colorwork yoke just really spoke to me in a way I just felt like I had to have that sweater. And I really love the colors that she used. And as you can see in my finished photos here, I kind of went the same route. But this was another project that I did full mood boarding for. There's just so many ways you could take it, and there are so many beautiful color pairings I could have done. I did use Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino and their soft silk mohair, and I get a lot of use out of it. I think it's a beautiful sweater. I did make a couple of modifications. I changed the neckline, so I think originally it's like a rolled turtleneck neckline, but I did a folded collar with twisted rib. I also used twisted rib on the cuffs and the hem, but nothing was folded there, so it was all just, single fabric. But I love the sweater. It's really a great layering piece. Here I was thinking that it was going to be an incredibly heavy garment, but it really wasn't. And I've worn it a bunch. It pairs with a lot because it's neutral colors. But yeah, it's another gorgeous piece by Augustins DK. Okay, this is the last garment that I completed this year so far. We're not quite done with the year yet, but we're very close. So I'm gonna say this is probably the last garment I will complete for this year. It was the Olga sweater by Petite Knit, and this sweater does not have stripes. If you guys have tuned in for my previous podcasts, I explained why it doesn't have stripes. It was a travel project for me, and I didn't want to be managing yarn and changing colors. But I do think eventually I will make a striped version. But this was a really great travel project. It was quite simple and easy to follow, and I've gotten a lot of use out of it. I did make the sleeves a little long. this is something that I've been playing around with the entire year, is learning how to modify patterns for my body length. So in this case, I do think the sleeves went a little on the long side, but it's not something that I was willing to, do the work to rip back, and it's still quite wearable for me. So I love this color. This color actually surprised me. When I saw it in the store, I wasn't quite sure it was for me, but I have gotten a lot of compliments and people saying that it actually does look great with my coloring. So it's funny, I played with a lot of colors this year that I knew that maybe were in my wardrobe before, or I just felt like they were something that, I knew to be flattering on me. But also it's been nice to kind of explore a little bit and play with colors that maybe were a little outside of my comfort zone, but fit a certain aesthetic or mood. So love this sweater, was super happy with it. It was a great travel project, and I'm happy to have it completed. Oh, and by the way, I did use pure Gint from San Nisgarn for this, and it was a wonderful fiber. Okay, and that brings me to the last completed project of 2025, my Oslo hat by Petite Knit. So this was using yarn that I had purchased at the New England Fiber Festival in Springfield, Massachusetts last year. So I purchased the yarn in 2024, and I kind of let it sit there. I knew, I was going to do a hat out of it, but I wasn't exactly sure which one. So again, if you watch the podcast, I was talking about maybe doing the December beanie by Pernille Larson of Knitting for Olive, but once I gauge swatched, I realized it just wasn't going to be, an appropriate pattern for this yarn. So the yarn itself was from Louise Roberts. I believe it's a Canadian brand, and it's gorgeous. I mean, this was a pleasure to work with. This was a blend of a merino nylon sock base in the color, I think it's Waterhouse, and then a matching Surrey alpaca, which is stunning. I mean, this hat is very luxurious and so lovely. Truly a pleasure to wear. Very warm and soft, and I had a ball going out and wearing it in the snow recently. So happy with the project and happy to say it's completed and off the needles. And I would definitely recommend that yarn and that pattern, specifically the combination, to anyone looking for a really nice accessories project. All right, so I thought I would do a little bit of a recap here, kind of a year at a glance moment, just to sort of think back and reflect on what I've done this year, sort of just like take it all in and bring it into the next year. So firstly, I noticed that I started the year doing a lot of round yokes. I did colorwork patterns that were round yokes. I completed the novice sweater, which is a round yoke pattern. It was something that was a comfort zone for me. I felt it was quite easy to follow along with. The pattern seemed friendly to jump into as a bit of a beginner myself. Then I realized that round yoke patterns, while they're classic and lovely and, certainly great, they do have their drawbacks. Oftentimes you get this riding up at the front of the neck. Sometimes I do find myself pulling the sweater forward, which, is a pretty common complaint. So then I started moving into patterns that utilize short rows and different methods of construction to sort of raise the back neck so that you're able to fit the contours of the body a little better. Naturally, as humans, the back of our neck is a little higher than the front of our chest. So I definitely recommend to anyone who's a beginner, anyone who's just not confident with trying out short rows. Specifically, I've used a lot of German short rows. It's super easy, and there are so many tutorials out there, and it really did make a big difference in the way garments fit for me. So I recommend, if you're on the fence, if you're not sure, just jump in and try it, and I think you're gonna see a big difference. Continuing on with a little bit of fit here, like I mentioned, I'm very tall, and I was learning how to alter garments to fit my height. My proportions are just super long all over my torso, my arms, my neck. Everything is just very elongated, and learning how to add length in a way that wasn't awkward or strange in a pattern was key for me this year. And then touching a bit on color work. So like I said, I did a lot of color work projects this year, from sweaters to tank tops. But as you know, I'm finishing up the year with my Dale of Norway sweater. So that is a 5-color, is it 5? I think it's 6. It's a 6-color color work project, and I did a full mood board for this, and I have to say, it's given me a lot of confidence, and I'm super excited to continue exploring how mood boarding affects my projects and creates a body of work for me. And kind of hand in hand with that, looking at different fiber substitutions was a big deal, and also recognizing how the fiber plays into the way a color translates. I touched on this a little bit in my color palettes video. If you guys haven't checked that out, please do check it out. I'm gonna link it up in the cards for you. It's a great watch, in my humble opinion. At least I had a lot of fun filming it for you guys. But fiber truly does affect the way color comes off in a project, especially if you're holding two fibers together. For example, this year I used a lot of mohair and merino pairings, and I think continuing to play with fiber content and mixing and matching and substituting different fibers is going to be really fun for me and really educational in 2026. I wasn't just learning techniques, I was developing a bit of a visual language around color and fiber, and I think that's super exciting, and I'm really excited to expand on that into 2026 and take it with me and to continue to explore what that looks like. But that was definitely a theme from 2025, and I'm excited to keep it going into the new year. All right, and so we're gonna wrap it up with a little bit of what I'm gonna bring into 2026 with me. So in 2026, I wanna continue creating garments that really fit my body, that feel intentional, that are tailored to me, and actually allow me to wear things. You know, a lot of times I would finish something and it wouldn't quite be the right fit or size, or, you know, even with accessories. I just think being really detailed with tailoring and fit makes a huge difference, and will continue to sharpen those skills as I move forward into the new year. More related to color here, I did a lot of single color studies this year. Like I said, I chose a single color for my Monday sweater, my Olga sweater, the Cosima sweater, and I was happy to do so. But I want to continue to think about color not so much as an afterthought or like I have to pick a color for this, but as a true design choice and as an integration into the pattern itself. You know, maybe looking at choosing colors in relation to palettes and not so much project by project. Like thinking of all of the clothing as a body of work and keeping it more cohesive and kind of going on color studies and thinking about things that way instead of picking and cherry picking colors that just, you know, happen to feel good in the moment. Instead of picking colors just to satisfy the fact that you have to pick a color, I think I just want to continue going down this road of exploring how palettes can look across many designs. And then I have to say, I really have had experience with quite a few new fibers this year. Like I said, merino and mohair, you know, and alpaca I've had experience with prior, but things like silk, linen, cotton, even bamboo and cashmere, and just all these different fabrics, they all have different texture and add different elements to a design, from drape and structure to overall visual impact. You know, does something have a fuzzy halo, or is it very crisp, or does it have a sheen? I think continuing to be intentional with these fiber selections in relation to color as well, but also to enhance the overall pattern and design as a whole. I think continuing to keep that in mind will also help me to create a mood when I'm knitting, not just satisfy pattern requirements, but actually create a vibe or a feel that I want the garment to exude when I'm wearing it. In 2026, I would also like to continue to explore some new silhouettes. Something I really didn't get to do this year was try a cardigan. I don't know why, it just wasn't something that I ended up casting on, but I think I would like to try to work towards that in the new year. Like I said, I really want to keep exploring color work and texture. I think continuing to refine choices and selections and my process feels natural. It feels like a natural progression for me. It will make my wardrobe feel even more intentional as I continue knitting, as I continue moving down this path of creating a hand knit wardrobe. I think, yes, it's nice to have pieces that are wearable, but also can coexist with each other because they all kind of exist and go really well and naturally and fit together. You know, ultimately, this shift in sort of being more intentional about my knits is kind of what led me to start mood boarding in the first place and really thinking about what colors, what textures I want in my wardrobe, but also go cohesively together. So considering color and texture before you even start a project, before you even pick up your needles, is really important, and that's something I'm gonna explore in the next video I have for you guys. All right, well, thank you so much for spending some time with me looking back on everything I knit this year. It was a big year for me. I feel like I accomplished a lot, I tried a lot of new things, and I'm excited to continue this journey into 2026. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much for being here, subscribing, liking, commenting, and hyping the video. Truly means a lot to me. And I hope you guys are all doing really well throughout this holiday season. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you guys in 2026. Bye.